Welcome back to my channel. Okay guys, a little bit of a different video this week. I want to discuss something that I have touched on it in the past, but I think it's more relevant now because of the current climate that we're in terms of the global market. Okay, so I actually put out a poll this morning asking what's your poison? Intraday trading, scalp trading versus investing and swinging. So 100% of the poll came back in favour of scalp trading and intraday trading. And I'm not surprised, to be honest with you, because as retail traders, that's exactly what we should be doing. So as a retail trader, you really should be focusing on scalp trading and intraday trading. And the reason for that is, when you're swing trading, you're taking up capital, you're taking up leverage, you're taking up margin, and that's just being held there, and that's okay if you're a hedge fund company or a banking institution where you can allow for that capital to just sit there and to make very small profits over a long period of time. But as a retail trader, especially when you're starting out, you don't have that luxury to set aside a big portion of your capital for swing trading or long-term investment. Because what you want to do is you need to use the capital that you have and the leverage and the margin, and you need to try and return as high a percentage return on your capital as you possibly can. Now yes, when you get to a level, you can either actually open up another brokerage account and just purposely use that for swing trading and investing, or you can set aside a percentage of your capital to investing and swing. But certainly as a retail trader, it's just not possible. It's not possible, and I think especially as a new trader, I think traders definitely get confused. They don't understand, and quite rightly so when you're new to the business, you don't quite really understand the concept of scalp trading and intraday trading and investing and swinging. But my advice is it's definitely the approach that you should take. Even if you cannot scalp an actual open, you can certainly scalp other times of the day, for example, a close. But I think it's a question that comes up in every trader's mind, every retail trader's mind when they start trading. They're very confused by the concept and they want to understand what's the best way to get that return on a consistent basis. So for me, it's scalp trading and intraday trading, because I have, in the 4.5 years that I've been in this business, I have experimented with absolutely everything. And I always found that when you were investing or swinging, your capital was just getting tied up for days and days, even weeks. In some cases, I had capital tied up in copper in the early days for like 6 months, so, and I was waiting for that to go into profit because it was in the red. For 6 months I had all that margin tied up. So these are valuable lessons that you learn at the start of your journey, but wouldn't it be a lot easier if you tried to learn these hard lessons from people like myself that have already been there, that have already made the mistake? So you should be learning from my mistake. Yes, I understand that, especially in this business, that you have to make the mistakes yourself to actually understand what it is you've done wrong. But you should certainly listen to people like myself that say, consider what it is that you're doing, because if you're going to invest in either a stock or an indice, future, whatever, you need to understand that you could be tied to that position for not days or weeks, but months, right? Months and months and months. So you need to decide, is that viable for the capital that you have? What are you going to allocate to that actual potential position versus what you're going to allocate to scalp trading? It's something that you need to sit down and think about because I didn't sit down and think about it when I started this journey 4.5 years ago. I just kind of jumped in there with both feet because I didn't fully understand. So you certainly should be thinking about, you know, what it is you're looking to achieve in the early months, and certainly even in the first year of starting in this career. You should be thinking about and planning what you're going to allocate to whatever. But as I said, my advice is either to scalp trade or intraday trade. Now, I've said many times before, you know, if you cannot scalp trade, you can intraday trade somewhere, right? There has to be at some point, there has to be somewhere that you can intraday trade. You know, I used to work for 9 hours a day, so in 9-hour shift, I used to travel to and from work, which took overall an hour. So I was out of my house for a minimum of 10 hours a day. You know, I used to train 5 days a week because that was a big part of my life, it still is. So there's me, I was tied up for 11 hours every single day between going to work, travelling and training. So 11 hours, and then I always found the time to intraday trade. You know, sometimes I always assumed that if I was at work during the time of scalp trading, I always assumed that I wouldn't get the opportunity. Sometimes I would get the opportunity because my screen was faced to the wall. You're correct, it was faced to the wall. And yes, sometimes I was able to scalp trade the open with my screen facing the wall, but sometimes I wasn't. Sometimes I'd be just about to place a trade and somebody would walk into the office, so I had to stop, or I would actually be in a trade. So therefore, I always had to assume myself that if I was on a shift where the open was at the start of my shift or the end of shift, I always assumed that I therefore wouldn't be able to. And if I did, that was a bonus, right? So in terms of time, you know, that was 11 hours of my day taken up 5 days a week, right? So therefore, you know, you gotta fit this around your current situation. You know, I said it very recently actually. You have to mold it around your current environment, your current situation. But it's there, you know, and there's a market open somewhere in the world. You know, if the US market is not open, there'll be another market open. You know, the European market, the Asian market, there's always a market open somewhere. But you've got to get your finger out and you've got to look for these opportunities. They're not going to come and sit on your lap and show you where to go and what to do. You know, you've got to implement a level of self-help. You know, even if you're in a community, you should still be sourcing elements of self-help, right? You shouldn't be just be hoping that people are going to tell you what to do all the time. You know, you have to take ownership for yourself and what you're doing. You have to explore other opportunities, and you have to. I mean, nobody else can tell you how to mold this around your life. Only you can do it. But you know, I've heard excuses over the last 4 years of people. I don't have enough time. Really, don't have enough time. You know, there's a market open somewhere in the world 24 hours a day. So seriously, you don't have time. You know, if you got up an hour early in the morning, you could trade. You know, if you went to bed an hour late, you could trade. If you didn't sit down and watch Netflix for 2 hours at night, you could trade. So therefore, there is no excuse. You know, if you want this bad enough, you'll make the sacrifices, you'll go through the pain, and you'll do whatever you have to do to ensure that you are successful in this. But if you're not prepared to put the work in, if you're not prepared to sacrifice various elements of your life, you're never going to be successful at this. Sure, how could you be? Because this requires 100% dedication, 100% dedication. So that is something, I think recently the subject has been brought up again because of the current environment that we're in. I think it's very risky to hold positions for long periods of time in the current climate. Due to market sentiment, rhetoric, you can get tied up in positions for a long, long time. So therefore, my advice as a retail trader is to scalp trade and intraday trade. And remember, when you intraday trade, it's quite an expansive word to use, intraday trade. It can mean anything from 10 minutes up to 2 or 3 hours, right? So that's what an intraday trade is. You're just trading through that day. You could even hold it for 4 or 5 hours, right? That's not swing trading, that's intraday trading. So therefore, you still have an opportunity. So I suppose this is more for newer retail traders coming into this business and trying to understand what it is they should be looking for, trying to find their feet. That is my advice as a retail trader. Until you hit a much higher level, you should keep your capital, margin, leverage, use it in intraday trading and swing trading. Not swing trading, scalp trading. Okay, so hopefully this has brought some kind of educational quality to you new traders out there. This whole building literally just shook. What the fuck? Okay, let's leave it at that. I don't know what's going on, but this whole building literally just shook there. I think I need to go. See you again very soon for another video.